Hey guys, and welcome to the Fish Room. I'm Rachel O'Leary, and it's time for a Tuesday tip. Now, I plan to take you guys outside to the greenhouse, but we're having some thunderstorms today, which is actually good news because it was triple digits yesterday. Now, in an upcoming video, I'm going to go over with you some of the things we can do with our summer tubs to beat the heat. But for today, I thought I would take a few minutes and prune some aquariums and address some of the questions that you guys have had about my health. I've been getting tons and tons and tons of messages and emails and comments both about my weight loss and my knee, so I thought today we would prune some tanks. I can tell you what I'm doing and I can address those questions. Sort of a prune my tank with me, play on a get ready with me. So let's get started. So I'm starting out here with a water change, and I've just clipped my siphon to the aquarium and have it running over to my drain port here. And that allows me to drop the water line. I also have another siphon, a bucket, and some aquascaping tools that I'm going to use to do some work in this aquarium. You can see that there's some dead leaves, and as I mentioned last week, this Pennywort is just out of control, so I wanted to address that with you guys. So let's get crack-a-lack in here. I'm going to start by removing all of the dead leaves that are on that narrow leaf Java Fern. And I could use my fingers, but I have a pair of curved scissors. These are made by Aqua Rebel, which is a German company. I have a pair of pincettes, which are made by Aqua Vitro, and my spring scissors, which I'm not sure if I'll need. Now, one of the tricky parts about maintaining heavily planted aquariums is addressing pulling out these leaves without unplanting everything that's in there. So I find that aquascaping tools make life a lot easier. It's been really difficult for me to do any sort of real maintenance on any aquarium in the past 6 weeks, but I'm going to try today. Now you can see on this old plant leaf, there's a bunch of baby plantlets growing out of it, and that's really common. They get these brown spots and then will sprout new plants from it. So I'll save this leaf in order to transplant this narrow leaf to another aquarium. You guys have also been asking quite a lot of questions about my health. I'm going to address a few of those as I pull off more of these dead Java Fern leaves. The first thing you guys ask the most is, have I lost weight? I think the answer to that is pretty obvious, yes. It was entirely intentional. Last August, I changed up my diet and just started eating and drinking differently, and lost a ton of weight, and I feel good. And I started that diet change, for a lot of reasons. One, I wanted to eat better and feel better. Two, I thought it might help my knee. I was trying to not have to have the surgery that I just had. Unfortunately, it was still necessary. But I think it certainly helped in my recovery quite a bit, so I'm glad for that. Basically, I quit eating any type of sugar at all. More of those little plantlets. I cut out all processed foods, and I eat mainly, it's sort of a bastardization of a keto diet. It's not as restrictive. Keto has a lot of restrictions. I eat more like a low carb, high fat diet, which is very, very, very similar to how I ate growing up. So it's been very easy for me to completely change just the way that I eat. It's not a diet, it's definitely a change to how I eat, and it's worked really well for me. Your mileage will vary. There are tons of Java Fern plantlets in here. Some of them I'm sticking back into nooks and crannies in the wood to fill out the planting more, and some I'm just removing. There's also quite a lot of dead leaves, so I'm glad I'm getting in here to maintain this. Now, over time, they would just fall apart, but that would be food for the pest snails that are in here. So it's kind of important to try and remove these. It also means that less nutrition is being taken away from the healthy leaves. And I find the easiest way to do this, again, is to just sort of grab the dying leaf with my pincettes here and
give it a gentle tug, and it usually pools. Now if you were using scissors, you'd want to trim it right at the rhizome, and if you remember correctly, the rhizome is that lateral finger-like part on the plant that the leaves grow up from and the roots grow down from. And with Java Fern, this should not be submerged underwater, which is what makes Java Fern so incredibly suitable to put into nooks and crannies in our aquarium. Things like the tangles of wood in this tank. So many Java Fern plantlets. This is fantastic. I don't know if you guys can see, but almost every decaying leaf I'm pulling out has baby plants on it, so I'll be able to move a lot of these into some of my smaller aquariums. Another question you guys have been asking a lot is when I'm going to be selling fish again. The answer is I don't know. I'm having a lot of complications with this surgery. I was an athlete in high school and I damaged my knee way back then, and it has had before this surgery I had 5 surgeries, and because of that there's a lot of nerve damage in my knee as well as compromised muscles and blood flow. I'm going to pull this plant actually out of the aquarium to do, and I can show you guys because it was loose anyway. Because I had so much extensive damage to the nerves and muscles in my right leg, I'm having all sorts of fun complications post-op, including muscle spasms and nerve spasms, and it's gotten so bad that you can visibly see about fist-sized knots on my leg with the naked eye from the spasms. So I went to the doctor yesterday, and he said if we don't get it under control, then my knee can't heal, and this is the best it will ever be. So he put me on some pretty hefty meds that already today I feel better than I have since surgery. So I'm hopeful that I'll now be able to start making progress. But the moral of the story is it means I won't be selling fish anytime soon because I still can barely walk. Okay, so that's most of the dying leaves off the Java Fern. There's still a few in there, but since they are growing so many plantlets, I'm going to leave them. I'm at about 20% here for the water change, so I'm going to stop the siphon in the aquarium so that I can do some spot cleaning of the gravel and see if any of the crypt leaves need to come off. Now, this is how many Java Fern plantlets I collected, and I'm just going to drop them up here in this shrimp tank to grow a bit more. Once they get a few inches long, I can then attach them to other aquariums. As I'm going through and doing maintenance, I do like to continuously wipe down the glass to prevent water spots. This aquarium, because it's had so much decaying plant matter, has a bit of a pest snail problem, so I'm going to use a siphon without the siphon end, just the hose, in order to be able to suck some of those up, as well as collect some of this detritus that is accumulated from the leaf litter and the driftwood in the aquarium. I do this sort of gravel back every other water change or so. A lot of times I will just change water with my siphon, but it's important even in a planted aquarium to make sure you're removing all the organics that accumulate, especially if you use a lot of driftwood. So I'm taking the opportunity to do that because, as I've mentioned in lots of videos, pest snails can only really accumulate if they have a food source. And decaying plant matter is an excellent food source for them, including the leaf litter. Now, I don't feel like the pest snails are out of control in this aquarium, but I'd like to keep a handle on it. Now, the goal water change amount in this aquarium is no more than 40%. There's a lot of detritus over here. So I just hover this hose over the surface of the soil, and it pulls a lot of that up. Now, I've shown you guys in the past my chopsticks trick. Unfortunately, I can't find a rubber band to show you it again. But a lot of times what I'll do is rubber band a chopstick right to the end of this siphon tube in order to poke it into this soil to disrupt more of the mulm. Another thing you can do is actually siphon up the detritus and then pinch off the end of the tube to release the substrate back into the aquarium. Now I really love these soil substrates, but they do trap a lot of dirt, which is great for the plants, but not ideal for us, especially if it's not fully carpeted, as this tank is not fully carpeted. Now, I see a couple crypt leaves that are not looking super awesome. So I'm going to take my curved scissors and just cut them off right at the base of the plant. Trying to not disturb the root structure of these crypts. Crypts are prone to melting, and it's sort of a defense mechanism that they do. Because they come from areas, a lot of times, that will have profound dry seasons. So the leaves will melt back in order to protect the roots of the plant, and then they'll grow back once there's adequate water. There's actually only one leaf that looked bad in there, so that's lucky. I'm going to refill the aquarium, and then I'm going to trim the Pennywort. But I need to see where it's lying in order to do so. Now for refill, I just use my straight tap water because I have a well. If you were using city water or municipal water, you would want to treat your aquarium before you start your refill for the total volume of the aquarium. And I direct the water here to bounce off the back corner because there's not any rooted plants there, and it will help prevent things from being disrupted too terribly. That's where I have both of my sponge filters oriented, and then that way the tank doesn't get too cloudy from me messing around in here. Again, it's been almost 6 weeks since I've done anything in this aquarium, so it's sort of surprising it looks as good as it does. Now we can see things are stirred up just a little bit, and also that I haven't filled the tank the entire way, and that's because I don't have lids on this aquarium. And with all these Nanostomus sp in there, or the barred pencilfish, I like to keep the water level down a little bit just in case they get startled, as I don't want them to jump out. They're one of my favorite fish, and they're pretty pricey at about $14 a piece and not easy to source. So what we're going to do next is address this Pennywort. Some of it I'll trim, some of it I'll tuck in, and there's some spots on some of the leaves that don't look real awesome, so I'll trim those off and discard them. Let's zoom in and I'll get started on that. Now for this, I'm going to use my little spring scissors. These are one of my favorite tools. These are made by Tropica, and I think they're about $20, and they are without a doubt one of my favorite tools of all times. You can see that there's some leaves like this one that just look kind of anemic and not so great. So I'm going to clip that off and discard it into my bucket. For the most part, the plant looks pretty healthy. It's just sort of out of control. And what I want to do is tuck it back into the wood. The fish use this plant a lot, or in theory they will, as a spawning mop. So I like leaving it in the aquarium, but I don't want it separated and looking all wonky. I do want it to be in that top third of the aquarium. So a lot of times what I'll do is just tuck it into the wood so that it stays a little bit lower. And I'll collect all these little tiny pieces that break off and drop them into an aquarium above to let them get a bit bigger before I can move them to another aquarium. See over here, it's growing up and around the sponge filter. I'll also break it in pieces, and again just tuck it back into the wood. Now this plant will root if you plant it in the substrate, but I prefer it to look like this, sort of bushy. So I just tuck it into the decor. You can see that looks a lot more controlled, and it will continue growing. Now I'm going to go grab a small net to clean up the water surface. So to get back to when I will be selling fish, I don't know. I'm hoping that by the end of the summer I'll be able to get the fish room rebuild in full swing so that I have enough tanks to be able to house fish, to have to sell. Right now I've broken down about a third of the fish room, as you guys know if you've been watching any of my weekly updates, live streams, or Thursday vlogs. And it's gonna take some time for me to be able to specifically lift and carry boxes to be able to ship. So I'm thinking by this winter, hopefully, I'll be back in action. And that is almost an entire year off from selling fish, which was definitely not in my plans before surgery. But, you know, roll with the punches, do what you gotta. I'm very lucky that my family is so willing to help out with the fish room and the greenhouse in this time. So, you know, onward and upward. Hopefully these new meds work so that I can get some relief and be able to function a bit better. I'm going to grab some almond leaves to drop in here, and I see a few more plant leaves that I need to address. Now, you guys know I love my almond leaves and botanicals. In fact, I want to get some more botanicals to be able to share with you guys. I have to order them. I have almond leaves of various sizes that I use. I try and stagger the sizes because I think it looks more natural. And I like to tuck them in here around the base of the wood. I'll link you guys to my complete video on almond leaves, but I think they're really useful as well as lovely. And my otocinclus absolutely adore grazing on them, which is the main reason I put them in here. You'll also notice that my water has a slight tea color to it. Part of that is from the leaf litter, part of that is from the driftwood. It is completely natural, and I actually like it a lot. So for me, tannins are beneficial. The fish like it, I like it. There's no harm done. If you didn't want that look, you can certainly use a chemical filtration, something like carbon or Purigen or even polyfilter to remove it. But in my aquariums, I like to have it. Now, these leaves will float initially, so I'm just tucking them underneath and into the wood until they become waterlogged. You could give them a slight boil if you wanted to, or pre-soak them in a bucket. For me, this works just fine. After all, I have all of this great driftwood in here that works out beautifully. Another thing that these leaves will do is provide hiding places for baby fish should I have any. Things like the baby apistos that I expect really any day now in this aquarium. Also, as they break down, they produce infusoria, which is a fantastic first fry food. So as far as I'm concerned, they have a lot of really, really useful applications to our hobby. Though I do understand that the tannins are not everybody's cup of tea. I think they look really nice though, and add just a nice natural element. Now, I generally put anywhere from about 4 to 8 in this aquarium. Right now I just stuck in 4. We'll see how they look in a little bit and then maybe add some more. I had a plant jump ship, so we'll just tuck it right back in there. And we're good. Now, over the next hour or two, this aquarium will definitely clear up quite a bit, but I think you can already see how much improvement there is just from some simple plant pruning. Look at this Pennywort already misbehaving. Let's get some close-ups of the fish for you guys. Maybe I'll even feed them for you. Let's take a close-up at the fish. If you remember correctly, in this aquarium are barred pencil fish, which are the ones with the vertical bars there, Nanostomus sp. There are green neons, which you can see coming out of the woodwork. And there are a metric ton of otocinclus. And you can see the otocinclus are incredibly visible and active. And this is really how they should look when they're housed in appropriate numbers. I have about 30 of them in this aquarium, and they are always out, about, visible, and noticeably fat and happy. Big round bellies and activity means a happy otocinclus. Now, they can be supplemented with Repashy Soylent Green or even sometimes blanched vegetables, but at this point mine are literally eating anything I put in the aquarium. Just to recap as well, my weight loss was intentional. I am not still trying to lose weight, but my diet change is permanent. It's really the only way I think that you can maintain something like a weight loss like I had is by basically changing your lifestyle. It wasn't a short-term decision. My knee is doing quite poorly. I got very bad news from the doctor yesterday that he thinks that this is probably as good as it's going to get, but he put me on some pretty high-powered meds that already today I can see a staggering difference in my comfort level and abilities, so I'm hopeful that that statement is not true, and I can get really back in action down here sooner rather than later, though it's entirely likely it won't be until this winter that I can sell fish. I do hope to start the renovations on the fish room within a month or so, so keep your fingers crossed for that. I really just wanted to thank you guys for all the support you've shown me through emails, the get well cards to my P.O. box, and the comments section below where you guys have just really shown me a lot of support. I can't express to you how much that means. Look at these guys. They are so stinking cute. As always, let me know below if you have any comments, suggestions, or questions. I think that this aquarium looks better for its prune, a little more controlled, and the fish certainly seem quite happy and active after this water change. Make sure you guys are subscribed so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. Hopefully we'll get out to the greenhouse on Thursday. I have fry in every single tub but one, so I'm super stoked to share that with you guys. And there's lots of exciting things in the future.